So there's Marcus Kane, right? Guy's 42, balding, and his biggest life accomplishment up until that Tuesday was unclogging the recycling system on Deck 7 without flooding the entire lower level. Marcus is what you might generously call a maintenance engineer aboard the UES Diplomacy, humanity's first official "let's make friends with aliens" ship. More accurately, he's a space janitor with a fancy title and a toolbox that's held together with duct tape and pure stubbornness. Now, the Diplomacy is supposed to be this shining example of human achievement, cruising through the galaxy, with our best and brightest diplomats ready to shake hands, tentacles, or whatever appendages our new neighbors happen to have. The problem is, our best and brightest diplomats are currently stuck between Deck 4 and Deck 5 because someone, and I'm not naming names, but it rhymes with Barkus, accidentally rewired the elevator controls while fixing a coffee machine. So when the Bloodclaw Empire's flagship drops out of hyperspace with all the subtlety of a brick through a window, guess who gets volunteered to represent all of humanity? That's right, Marcus Kane, the guy who once tried to negotiate with a broken vending machine for 20 minutes before realizing it wasn't plugged in. The aliens request a meeting in the main docking bay, and Marcus shows up wearing his maintenance coveralls, which, let's be honest, have seen better decades, carrying a clipboard and looking like he'd rather be literally anywhere else. He's expecting maybe some diplomatic small talk, maybe exchange some business cards, maybe figure out how to free his colleagues before they start eating each other. What he gets instead is Vraktar. Vraktar stands 7 feet tall, covered in scales that look like they were designed by someone who thought regular armor wasn't intimidating enough. He's got claws that could open a can of soup or disembowel a rhinoceros with equal ease, teeth that would make a shark jealous, and eyes like molten gold that seem to be calculating exactly how many pieces Marcus would make if properly dismembered. Touch the translator box crackles to life as Vraktar speaks, his voice like gravel being processed through a cement mixer. "Human representative," comes the mechanical translation. "I am Vraktar of the Bloodclaw Empire, heir to the Crimson Throne, slayer of the void beasts of Kepler 9, and bearer of the sacred scars of honor." Marcus looks down at his clipboard, then back up at this walking nightmare. Hi, I'm Marcus. I fix stuff." There's a pause. Vraktar's head tilts slightly, like a predator trying to figure out if its prey just said something profound or incredibly stupid. "Fix stuff?" The translator struggles with this concept. "Yeah, you know. Pipes, electrical systems, that sort of thing. Speaking of which, you guys wouldn't happen to know anything about elevator repair, would you? Because I've got some very important people trapped between floors, and they're probably getting pretty cranky about now." Vraktar's eyes narrow. In his culture, this casual dismissal of his titles, this complete lack of fear in the face of his obvious superiority, can only mean one thing. This human is either the greatest warrior who ever lived, or completely insane. Given that insane warriors tend to be the most dangerous kind, he decides to test this theory. "Human Marcus who fixes stuff," he says, and you can hear the capital letters in his voice. "I challenge you to single combat for the honor of first contact between our species." Marcus blinks. "Come again?" "Single combat. To the death. Winner takes all." Marcus checks his watch. "Yeah, see, that sounds like a whole thing, and I've got a lunch break in about 20 minutes. Also, and I cannot stress this enough, I have never been in a fight that didn't involve trying to get ketchup packets unstuck from a vending machine. Are you sure you've got the right guy?" The absolute certainty in Vraktar's voice could cut diamond. "I am sure." And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how Marcus Kane, professional fixer of things and amateur disaster magnet, accidentally became the first human to receive a formal declaration of war from an alien species. The day was Tuesday, the time was 11:37. IM ship time, and Marcus was really hoping someone would fix that elevator soon. Because things were about to get weird. Now, if you've never had a 7-foot lizard person explain the sacred traditions of ritual combat to you while you're wondering if the cafeteria is still serving those little sandwiches with the crusts cut off, let me tell you, it's an experience. Vraktar begins what can only be described as a lecture on the deep spiritual significance of blood oaths in Bloodclaw culture. Apparently, when two warriors meet and one challenges the other, they're bound by cosmic forces older than most solar systems to settle their differences through glorious battle. The winner gets honor, respect, and presumably bragging rights at whatever passes for alien bars in their neck of the galaxy. The loser gets dead. "The blood oath cannot be undone," Vraktar intones, his voice carrying the weight of 1,000 generations of warrior tradition. "It binds us across space and time, connecting our souls in eternal combat, until one proves worthy and the other finds honor in death. Marcus nods, along like he's listening to someone explain tax law. Right, sure. Blood oath. Very serious stuff. Quick question though, when you say blood oath, do we actually have to, do the blood thing? Because I'm not great with needles and my insurance probably doesn't cover ritual scarification. The confusion on Vraktar's face is almost visible through his scales. In his experience, warriors faced with sacred combat either accept with grim determination or flee in terror. They don't ask about dental coverage. The blood oath is sealed by combat itself, he explains patiently. Your blood upon my claws, or mine upon yours. Okay, but that seems like it would stain, Marcus says, genuinely concerned. These coveralls are practically brand new, well, newish. Okay, they're mostly held together by patches, but still. What Marcus doesn't realize is that his complete lack of fear isn't reading as ignorance to Vraktar, it's reading as supreme confidence. In Bloodclaw culture, only the most elite warriors can face death with such casual indifference. The fact that this human seems more concerned about laundry than mortal combat clearly means he's either a master strategist playing mind games or so skilled that death holds no terror for him. You mock the sacred traditions? Vraktar asks. But there's curiosity in his voice now, not anger. Oh no, not mocking, just, trying to understand the practical aspects. Like, is this a spectator sport? Should I sell tickets? And more importantly, is there a time limit? Because I really do have that lunch break, and if I miss it, the good pudding cups will be gone. Vraktar's warrior brain is starting to short-circuit. This human speaks of combat like it's a minor scheduling inconvenience. Either he's so used to deadly battles that they bore him, or, no, that has to be it. No one could be this casual about facing a Bloodclaw warrior unless they'd done it 100 times before. You speak as one who has faced death many times, Vraktar says, respect creeping into his voice. Marcus shrugs. Well, there was that time the gravity generator went out while I was fixing the air recyclers, and last month the coffee machine tried to electrocute me. Oh, and there's the ongoing situation with the automatic doors on Deck 3. They've developed what I can only describe as a malicious personality. To Vraktar, this sounds like a warrior recounting epic battles with exotic weapons and hostile environments. The casual way Marcus describes surviving gravity generator failures and electrocution attempts only confirms his suspicion that he's facing a seasoned killer. Then you accept the blood oath with honor? Vraktar asks. Marcus checks his watch again. Look, I'm not really sure what I'm accepting here, but if it means we can wrap this up and maybe become friends afterward, sure. I accept your blood oath thing, but can we maybe do the Cliff Notes version? I've got a ham sandwich with my name on it. The moment the words leave his mouth, Vraktar drops to one knee. Not in surrender, in respect. Brother in combat, he says solemnly, we are now bound by the sacred oath. We fight, and the survivor gains not just victory, but brotherhood with a warrior proven worthy. Marcus blinks. Wait, did you just call me brother? That's actually kind of nice. Nobody's called me brother since my actual brother, and he only calls when he needs help moving furniture. And that's when Marcus Kane, maintenance engineer extraordinaire, realizes he's somehow managed to accept an alien blood oath, schedule a death match, and accidentally stumble into what might be the galaxy's most dangerous friendship interview. The good news? He's starting to like Vraktar. The bad news? One of them is supposed to end up dead. The worst news? Marcus is pretty sure he knows which one. So here's where things get interesting. Vraktar, being a professional warrior from a culture that treats combat like fine art, decides he needs to prepare properly for this sacred duel. Marcus, being a professional human with the survival instincts of a caffeinated squirrel, decides he should probably figure out what the hell he's gotten himself into. Vraktar retreats to his ship to perform the traditional, pre-combat rituals. We're talking about ceremonies that have been refined over thousands of years of warrior culture. He lights incense made from the bones of conquered enemies. He meditates while balanced on razor-sharp spikes. He consecrates his weapons by speaking the names of every ancestor who died gloriously in battle, which takes about 2 hours because apparently the Bloodclaw Empire has been very thorough about keeping track of their heroic deaths. Meanwhile, Marcus goes back to his quarters, pulls out his phone and types "how to fight 7-foot lizard alien" into the search engine. The results are not encouraging. Most of the advice seems to involve running away very fast, which isn't really an option when you're trapped on a spaceship with your opponent. So he tries basic self-defense techniques, gets overwhelmed by all the martial arts videos, and eventually settles on how to fight dirty in a street fight, because that seems more his speed. The first tip is use whatever's available as a weapon, which gives him an idea. Marcus heads down to the maintenance bay, which is basically his natural habitat. If he's going to die horribly, he figures he might as well die surrounded by things he understands. He starts gathering what he generously calls tactical equipment, but what everyone else would call random junk. A mop with a reinforced handle? That's a staff weapon now. A roll of industrial duct tape? Improvised restraint system. A can of degreasing spray? Chemical warfare, probably illegal under several galactic treaties. A wrench set? Throwing weapons, obviously. That thing that's supposed to be for cleaning air vents but looks vaguely like medieval torture device? He's not sure what that is, but it's going in the bag. While Marcus is essentially turning a janitor's closet into an armory, Vraktar is performing the ritual of sharpening, which involves not just maintaining his weapons but spiritually aligning himself with their killing potential. Each claw is honed to perfection. Each scale is polished until it gleams like armor. He paints traditional war markings on his face with pigments that have been blessed by warrior priests. Marcus, on the other hand, puts on his lucky work boots, the ones with the steel toes that he got after that incident with the hydraulic press, and calls it good. The really beautiful part is that to the small crowd of aliens who've gathered to watch this historic first contact, Marcus's preparations look absolutely terrifying. Here's a human who's so confident in his fighting abilities that he's selecting weapons from what appears to be a torture chamber full of mysterious devices. The way he hefts that mop and nods approvingly, clearly testing the balance of an exotic polearm. The careful way he examines the duct tape, obviously considering the tactical applications of an advanced binding agent. When he sprays the degreaser into the air and watches how it disperses, the watching aliens exchange nervous glances. Is he testing wind patterns for projectile accuracy? Checking the atmospheric composition for chemical weapon deployment? They don't know, but it looks professional. Vraktar emerges from his preparations looking like death incarnate. Scales gleaming, claws razor-sharp, eyes burning with warrior's fire. He spent hours preparing his body, mind, and spirit for glorious combat. Marcus emerges from the maintenance bay, wearing coveralls that have somehow acquired even more stains, carrying a toolbox that clanks ominously, and trailing what appears to be 50 feet of duct tape that he's wrapped around his waist like the world's least impressive utility belt. "You ready for this?" Marcus asks, adjusting his grip on what used to be a plumbing snake but now looks like some kind of flexible whip-blade hybrid. Vraktar studies his opponent's loadout with growing respect. This human has chosen to fight with tools rather than traditional weapons. A bold statement that says he's so skilled he can kill with anything at hand. The confidence required for such a choice speaks of a master warrior who's transcended the need for conventional arms. "I am ready, Brother Marcus," Vraktar says formally. "May we both find honor in this combat." Marcus nods seriously. "Yeah, honor. Definitely. Quick question. When this is over, could you maybe mention to whoever's in charge that I wasn't actually trying to start an interstellar incident? Because my boss is going to be really upset if I accidentally cause a war on company time. And that, folks, is how you accidentally convince an entire alien species that humans are either the most dangerous warriors in the galaxy or completely insane. Spoiler alert, the distinction might not matter. The main docking bay has been cleared and transformed into what the aliens generously call an arena of honor, and what Marcus would call a really big empty room with poor lighting. The gathered crowd includes representatives from 3 different species, all of whom have apparently decided that watching a human get dismembered by a bloodclaw warrior is quality entertainment. Vraktar enters the circle first, moving with the fluid grace of a predator who's spent his entire life perfecting the art of violence. Every step is calculated, every movement economical. He's poetry in motion, if poetry involved a lot more claws and existential threat. Marcus enters the circle second, tripping slightly over his duct tape utility belt and making a sound that can only be described as oof. He sets down his toolbox with a clank that echoes through the bay and looks around like he's trying to figure out where the nearest exit might be. "By the ancient laws of combat," Vraktar announces, raising his arms to the crowd, "we fight until one yields, flees, or dies. There is no dishonor in surrender, Brother Marcus." Marcus nods seriously. "Right, got it. Yield, flee, or die. Those are my options." "Great. Super encouraging." He pulls the mop from his toolbox and holds it like he's seen people hold staffs in movies. Is there a fourth option? Like maybe we could arm wrestle instead?" The crowd murmurs. In their cultures, pre-combat banter is either ritualistic threats or respectful acknowledgement of one's opponent. Marcus's casual attitude toward the sacred duel is being interpreted as supreme psychological warfare. The mark of a warrior so confident that he's already planning what to have for lunch after the fight. Vraktar assumes a combat stance that looks like it was designed by someone who really understood the biomechanics of disemboweling. I will make your death swift and honorable, brother. That's weirdly sweet, actually, thanks. Marcus tries to copy Vraktar's stance and ends up looking like he's about to clean a particularly stubborn floor stain. So, how do we start this? Is there a whistle or something? Before anyone can answer, Vraktar launches into motion, and let me tell you, when a 7-foot reptilian killing machine decides to close the distance between himself and his prey, it's like watching a missile with personality issues. Marcus's response is pure instinct, honed by years of working in confined spaces with dangerous machinery. He doesn't try to block or dodge in any conventional sense. Instead, he does what any reasonable maintenance worker would do when faced with incoming danger. He gets the hell out of the way and tries to put something between himself and the problem. The mop comes up, not in any kind of martial arts technique, but in the exact motion Marcus has used 10,000 times to flip a wet floor sign out of the way. Except this time, instead of moving a sign, the mop handle catches Vraktar right in the snout with a solid thunk. Vraktar staggers back, more surprised than hurt. In all his years of combat, no one has ever tried to... What was that? A nose boop? With a cleaning implement? Oh crap, sorry, Marcus says, genuine concern in his voice. Are you okay? I didn't mean to hit you in the face. I was aiming more for, well, I wasn't really aiming at all, if I'm being honest. The crowd is dead silent. In their experience, warriors don't apologize for landing successful strikes. They certainly don't show concern for their opponent's well-being. Mid-combat, this human has just demonstrated a fighting technique so advanced that it involves attacking while simultaneously expressing empathy for his enemy. Vraktar shakes his head, refocuses, and attacks again. This time he comes in low, claws extended, ready to end this quickly and cleanly. Marcus, meanwhile, is frantically trying to remember anything useful from those self-defense videos. The only thing that comes to mind is use your environment, so he grabs the roll of duct tape from his belt and throws it. Now, duct tape doesn't make a great projectile under normal circumstances, but when you throw it in a panic and it unrolls in mid-air, creating a sticky silvery web that catches an attacking alien right across the eyes, that's what experts call dumb luck, and what spectators call advanced tactical misdirection. Vraktar runs face first into a wall of adhesive tape that wraps around his head like the world's least dignified blindfold. He stumbles, clawing at the tape, making sounds that roughly translate to "What the hell just happened?" Oh no, that looks really uncomfortable, Marcus says, genuinely distressed. He approaches with his hands up in a peaceful gesture. Here, let me help you get that off. I hate when tape gets stuck to things. It's like the universe's way of saying your day could always get worse. And here's where things get really weird. Marcus starts trying to help Vraktar remove the duct tape. He's not attacking, he's not gloating, he's just helping. Like this is a maintenance problem that needs solving rather than a deathmatch. Hold still, Marcus mutters, working at the tape with the careful patience of someone who's spent years dealing with adhesive mishaps. There's a trick to this. You have to go with the grain of the, well, scales in your case, I guess. Vraktar is completely frozen. This is so far outside his experience of combat that his warrior brain has essentially blue-screened. Is this some kind of psychological torture? Is the human demonstrating his superiority by showing mercy? Is this what fighting a master tactician feels like? There we go, Marcus says, finally getting the last of the tape free. Sorry about that. Industrial adhesive is no joke. I once got stuck to a bulkhead for 3 hours because I underestimated the grabbing power of... Are you okay? You look kind of confused. Vraktar stares at him. You helped me. Well, yeah. That looked uncomfortable. Marcus pauses. Are we still fighting, or... That's when Vraktar makes a decision that surprises everyone, including himself. Instead of attacking, he starts laughing. It's a sound like boulders tumbling down a mountain, rough and deep and completely genuine. Brother Marcus, he says, wiping tears from his eyes, in all my years of combat, no warrior has ever stopped mid-battle to remove tape from my face. Marcus shrugs. First time for everything, I guess. So, does this mean we're done? Because I have to say, this is probably the weirdest Tuesday I've had in a while, and last Tuesday I had to explain to the captain why the automatic doors were speaking French. And that's the moment when Vraktar realizes something important. Marcus isn't fighting like a warrior, because he's not a warrior. He's just a decent person trying to figure out an impossible situation. And somehow that makes him more dangerous than any trained killer Vraktar has ever faced. Because how do you fight someone who keeps trying to help you? The silence in the docking bay stretches on for what feels like an eternity, but is probably only about 15 seconds. The gathered alien spectators are trying to process what they just witnessed, which appears to be the first recorded instance of someone winning a death match through aggressive helpfulness. Marcus looks around at the crowd, then back at Vraktar, who's still standing there with bits of adhesive residue stuck to his scales. So, Marcus says carefully, I'm getting the impression that stopping to help you wasn't part of the traditional combat format. No, Vraktar says slowly, it was not. Right, sorry about that. I'm still figuring out the rules here. Marcus sets the mop down and actually sits cross-legged on the floor, like they're having a casual conversation instead of a ritual battle to the death. Can I ask you something? And I promise I'm not trying to be disrespectful or anything, but why do you guys do this? The whole blood oath combat thing, I mean. Vraktar blinks, which on a reptilian face involves a lot more eye membrane than you'd expect. Why do we? What? The fighting to the death part. Like, I get that you have traditions and culture and all that, but it seems like there might be more efficient ways to make friends. Have you tried board games? I mean, Monopoly can get pretty heated, but usually nobody actually dies. And here's where something interesting happens. Vraktar, who has spent his entire adult life either fighting people or preparing to fight people, realizes he's never actually thought about why they do it. It's just what they do, what they've always done. We fight, he says, but his voice lacks the certainty it had before. Because we are warriors, it is our nature. Okay, but like, Marcus scratches his head, leaving a small streak of grease behind. I fix things because broken stuff needs fixing. That makes sense. You fight because you're warriors, but why are you warriors? What's the point? Vraktar opens his mouth to give the traditional answer about honor and strength and proving worthiness, but the words don't come. Instead, he finds himself really thinking about it for the first time in his life. We fight, he says slowly, to find worthy opponents, to test ourselves against others who understand strength. Right, but then what happens when you find them? I mean, if you kill all the worthy opponents, then you're just left with unworthy ones, and where's the fun in that? The logic is so simple it's devastating. Vraktar has spent years searching the galaxy for warriors who could challenge him, and every time he found one, the sacred traditions demanded he kill them. It's like being a collector who destroys everything valuable he finds. Vraktar sits down too, which probably violates about 17 different warrior codes, but seems like the thing to do. I had not considered this. Marcus nods seriously. It's like being a mechanic who fixes engines by blowing them up. Technically impressive, maybe, but counterproductive in the long run. He pauses, studying Vraktar's expression. Can I ask you something else? When's the last time you just talked to someone? Like, had a conversation that wasn't about fighting or honor or who was going to kill who? The question hits Vraktar like a physical blow. He searches his memory, going back through years of formal challenges, ritual combats, and ceremonial declarations of war. Conversations with fellow warriors that consisted entirely of comparing battle scars and discussing tactics. Interactions with other species that began and ended with combat challenges. I do not remember, he admits quietly. That's really sad, Marcus says, and the genuine sympathy in his voice does something weird to Vraktar's chest. I mean, fighting is probably fun and all, but there's a lot of other stuff out there. Have you ever seen a sunset on a planet with two suns? Or tried ice cream? Or watched a really good movie where you don't know how it's going to end? What is ice cream? Marcus's face lights up like someone just asked him to explain his favorite hobby. Oh man, you are missing out. It's this frozen dairy product, right? But it comes in like 100 different flavors. There's chocolate, vanilla, strawberry. There's even this weird green one that tastes like plants, but somehow it's amazing. It's cold and sweet and creamy, and on a hot day, it's basically the best thing in the universe. Vraktar listens to this description with the intensity of someone receiving vital intelligence about enemy weaknesses. But instead of battle tactics, he's learning about joy. Simple, uncomplicated pleasure that has nothing to do with proving himself or maintaining honor or living up to ancient traditions. This ice cream, he says carefully. Does it require combat to obtain? What? No, you just buy it, or make it if you're feeling ambitious. No fighting required. Actually, fighting would probably make it melt, which would defeat the whole purpose. For the first time in his adult life, Vraktar considers the possibility that there might be worthwhile experiences that don't involve violence. The concept is so foreign it's almost frightening, like discovering that gravity might be optional. "Brother Marcus," he says slowly, "your people, they find satisfaction in things other than combat?" "Oh, absolutely. Most humans never fight anybody. We've got people who spend their whole lives just making music or growing food or building things or studying stars or teaching kids or making people laugh. Fighting is like," Marcus searches for the right analogy. "It's like fixing a broken pipe. Sometimes it's necessary, but you don't do it for fun, and you definitely don't make it your whole identity." The silence that follows is different from the earlier one. This isn't confusion or shock. It's the sound of someone's entire worldview quietly reshaping itself. "I think," Vraktar says eventually, "I have been very lonely." Marcus nods. "Yeah, I kind of got that impression. The whole challenging people to death matches thing seemed like maybe it was compensating for something. Not like, compensating, but more like trying to connect with people the only way you knew how." "You saw this?" "Well, I mean, I'm not a psychologist or anything. But you did call me brother like 5 minutes after meeting me. That doesn't exactly scream emotionally fulfilled individual." Marcus pauses. "Plus, the way you explained the blood oath thing, it sounded less like I want to kill you and more like please validate my existence through ritual combat." Vraktar stares at him for a long moment, then does something that surprises everyone in the room, including himself. He starts laughing again, but this time it's not the rough, boulder-tumbling sound from before. This is something lighter, more genuine. "Brother Marcus," he says, wiping his eyes, "I believe you have defeated me without striking a single blow. Is that good or bad? I do not know, but I would very much like to try this ice cream you spoke of." And that's when Marcus Kane realizes that maybe, just maybe, he's accidentally figured out something that all the diplomats and ambassadors and professional first contact specialists missed. Sometimes the best way to make friends with someone isn't to impress them or negotiate with them or even fight them. Sometimes you just have to see them as a person who might be lonely and offer them ice cream. So here's what happens next, and trust me, you're gonna love this part. Vraktar stands up, brushes the remaining duct tape residue off his scales, and makes an announcement that probably violates about 47 different sections of the Blood Club Warrior Code. He declares that the blood oath has been fulfilled, not through combat, but through what he calls victory of understanding. Which sounds way more profound than "we sat on the floor and talked about ice cream," but that's politics for you. The crowd of alien spectators doesn't quite know how to process this. They came expecting to see either a human get artistically dismembered or a legendary warrior fall to some kind of exotic Earth combat technique. What they got instead was two people having what appeared to be a therapy session in the middle of an arena. The confusion is so thick you could cut it with a knife, assuming the knife wasn't stuck to something with duct tape. Marcus, meanwhile, is just happy nobody died. "So we're good?" he asks, standing up and dusting off his coveralls. "No more blood oath business? Because I really should check on those diplomats. They've been stuck in that elevator for like 3 hours now, and Ambassador Chen gets cranky when she misses lunch." "We are more than good, Brother Marcus," Vraktar says, and there's something different in his voice now. The formal warrior cadence is still there, but underneath it is something that sounds almost like happiness? "We are bound by something stronger than a blood oath. We are bound by friendship." And that's when Marcus does something that will be talked about in alien diplomatic circles for the next century. He walks over to Vraktar, completely ignoring the fact that this is a 7-foot killing machine with claws that could open him like a can of soup, and gives him a hug. Not a formal embrace, not some kind of ritualistic gesture, just a regular human hug, the kind you give to someone who looks like they need it. Freezes for about half a second, then very carefully hugs him back, trying not to accidentally impale his new friend with his claws. It's probably the most awkward hug in galactic history, but it's also genuine, and that matters more than technique. The alien spectators are now beyond confused and well into what the hell is happening territory. Some of them are taking notes, others are quietly placing bets on whether this is some kind of elaborate human psychological warfare technique. "Right," Marcus says, stepping back and clapping his hands together like he's wrapping up a successful maintenance call. "I should probably go report this to somebody. Are you going to be okay? Do you need anything? I've got more duct tape if that whole adhesive experience was somehow spiritually significant." Vraktar considers this seriously. I would like to learn more about your people, Brother Marcus, and I would very much like to try this ice cream. Well, you're in luck, because the cafeteria on Deck 5 has a soft-serve machine that's only broken about half the time. I was going to grab lunch anyway. Want to come with? And that's how the first official diplomatic contact between humanity and the Bloodclaw Empire concludes, not with a treaty signing ceremony or a formal exchange of ambassadors, but with a space janitor taking an alien warrior to the cafeteria for ice cream and probably a ham sandwich. But here's where it gets really interesting, because this is where the long-term consequences start to kick in. See, Vraktar doesn't just go back to his ship and file a report about his encounter with the humans. He stays. For 3 weeks. He becomes the galaxy's first alien exchange student, bunking in the guest quarters and following Marcus around like a 7-foot scaly puppy who's just discovered that the universe is full of interesting things that don't involve violence. He learns to play poker and turns out to be terrible at bluffing because his emotional responses are too honest. He discovers that he loves terrible Earth movies, especially the ones with explosions, but not because of the action scenes. He likes them because the characters usually survive and get to be happy at the end. He helps Marcus fix the elevator, which turns out to be a surprisingly zen experience when you approach it as collaborative problem-solving instead of ritualistic combat. The diplomats finally get rescued, though by that point the real diplomatic work has already been done by a maintenance worker and his new alien best friend. Word gets back to the Bloodclaw Empire, and instead of court-martialing Vraktar for abandoning warrior tradition, they send more warriors to study this human approach to conflict resolution. It turns out that a lot of them are just as tired of the endless cycle of violence as Vraktar was, but nobody had ever suggested there might be alternatives. Within 6 months, the Bloodclaw Empire goes from being the galaxy's most feared warrior culture to being its most enthusiastic students of human sociology. They start cultural exchange programs. They open restaurants specializing in fusion cuisine that combines traditional Bloodclaw spices with Earth comfort food. They invent a sport that's like a cross between their ritual combat and human volleyball, and it becomes wildly popular across 12 star systems. Marcus gets promoted to Senior Diplomatic Maintenance Engineer, which is apparently a real job title now, and comes with a raise that he uses to buy a better toolbox. He and Vraktar start a podcast called Humans Are Space Orcs, where they discuss the weird things humans do that accidentally impress aliens, like stopping mid-fight to help your opponent, or treating every social interaction like a problem that needs fixing. The podcast becomes the most popular cross-species media phenomenon in the galaxy. They get sponsorship deals from 3 different ice cream companies and a duct tape manufacturer. Marcus finally gets the respect he deserves as someone who can fix anything, including centuries-old diplomatic deadlocks. Vraktar discovers that he's actually really good at explaining complex emotional concepts, probably because he spent so many years not understanding them himself. But the best part? 6 months later, when Marcus's brother calls asking for help moving furniture, Marcus doesn't go alone. He brings Vraktar, who turns out to be extremely helpful when you need to lift heavy objects, and doesn't mind the weird looks from the neighbors. Because that's what brothers do. They help each other move furniture, even when one of them is a reformed alien warrior and the other is a space janitor who accidentally prevented an interstellar war by offering someone ice cream. And if that's not the most beautifully ridiculous thing you've ever heard, then you clearly haven't spent enough time thinking about the power of basic human decency in a universe full of people who are just looking for someone to see them as more than their job description. The end. Actually, no, wait. The real end is that Marcus never did get that ham sandwich, because by the time they made it to the cafeteria, it was dinner time and they had pizza instead. But the ice cream machine was working, and Vraktar discovered that he's partial to vanilla with chocolate chips, which Marcus maintains is a solid choice for a first-timer. Now that's the end.